Grace and peace. I shared this video on TikTok. I had to rush through it, so I'm going to share it here so that I don't have to rush through it. But this video is about something that God showed me with 7 different types of prophets, and he used horses. Now we know that horses are symbols of, the world's view of things, the way the world works, and the way the world sees things, just the way that the world operates. So because the world does not see the things of God through spiritual eyes, he showed me a way to illustrate or to demonstrate to the world the difference between the prophets and what's going on, because there is a battle between the prophets. But let me just get straight to it. He shared with me 7 different types of prophets, and these are not prophets of the way that they operate, like the Elijah being different from Ezekiel, or Ezekiel being different from Jeremiah. No, I'm going to list a name of different types of horses and then show you what's moving and why it's operating the way that it is, and then show you what's not God. Now there are 6 of these horses who are represent God's prophets, but there is the 7th horse who does not represent God or is not a prophet of God. And some of these operate as if they are not called by God, because they allow other things to get caught up in the mixture of their calling. So there is first the thoroughbred. The thoroughbred, let me just give you the list first. The thoroughbred, the mixed breed, the mutt, the rider, the runner, the forgotten, and the Trojan horse. Now I'm going to share a little bit of what God said to me about each one. The thoroughbred is the one who is, they were just born prophets, whether they found out later in life that they were prophets, or whether, they were like Jeremiah. God came to them and said, before you were in your mother's womb, I formed you. We were all those who are truly called to be prophets. They were formed in their mother's womb as prophets. Before they even got here, they were prophets, even if they found out later in life that they were prophets. The mixed breed is a mixture of the thoroughbred and the stallion. The stallion, we know, can be, when they're not tamed, they can be buck wild and out of control. But right now, God is not really taming the stallions, because the stallion is mixed with the thoroughbred. The thoroughbred is always going to conduct themselves in a fashion of excellence and things of that nature. So while the mixed breed is wild and doing its thing, that doesn't look like the way that the thoroughbred would do it. And I really need you to look through prophetic lenses and hear what it is that I'm saying, unless you're going to miss what it is that I'm saying. When you look at the thoroughbred, you see how the thoroughbred is groomed and taken care of, it, how it has a certain stance, a certain appearance, like you could tell the value, the regalness, the power of the thoroughbred horse, that they're always winners. They're going to do what needs to be done to represent themselves in a certain way. These are horses who are kept in the stable. They're functioning and operating in the stable and doing what it is that they do. People look up to them. A lot of people value them. They have a lot of followers. They have a lot of people who even don't follow them, but just listen and hear what it is that they're saying when you look at them in context of the prophet. But it does not mean, because they have a large following, that they are prophets of God, which we will get to that. The mixed breed don't look like the other prophets. They don't act like the other prophets. Now you have the thoroughbreds who are going to represent themselves and look fashionable and look a certain way and things of that nature, but the mixed breed is a prophet of God who has a wild side, who is a little rebellious, but they don't appear to look like this well-groomed prophet that everybody, even though they're clean, I don't mean like they're dirty, muddy, running around looking out of place. No, they just don't look like your average prophet. They may not have their hair cut and looking like the way they may have it with different colors and rainbows in it and things of that nature, or they may have things on their bodies, or the way that they carry themselves, even though they are clean, they don't dress the way that somebody else who you think is a prophet, like they're not wearing sackcloth and ashes, or they're not wearing church clothes. They're wearing Prada and Gucci and things of that nature, and you'll overlook them as a prophet because they don't look like the prophet that you think that they should look like. So they people look at them and say, oh, that can't be a prophet. They're labeled a false prophet when they are a true prophet, on fire for God, about the Father's business, doing the work that God has called the prophet to do, but just not doing it the way that the world or the church thinks that they ought to do it, even though they are not disrespectful or out of place. They're simply just about the Father's business, and whatever the Father says to do, this is what they are going to do. Now you have the mutt. The mutt is the prophet. But the mutt just chooses to stay caught up in their feelings. The mutt doesn't go through any healing or deliverance. The mutt is just, I have these gifts. I know I'm a prophet, but I don't have time to go through the pain and the God taking me on the backside of the desert. They've been on the backside of the desert. They failed the test. They don't like the way that feels. You have the mutt who is concerned about everything around them, money coming and, things of that nature, always in their feelings about everything. And you come at them, they go come down on you like a hammer and things of that nature because they're undisciplined and out of control. But the mutt is also the person who is mixed and diluted and contaminated, and polluted with the ways of the world. They mix in different belief systems and religions and things of that nature into the call of a prophet. So the mutt is a prophet, but they just allow other things to affect and offend them. They wear the feelings on their sleeves and things of that nature, like they're easy to scare, but they want to look like they're big, bad, and bold. So they're the mutt. The rider is the prophet who, I'm gonna ride this out. Many are called, but few are chosen. I'll operate in the call, but I'm not going no further unless somebody or something happens that provokes me or makes me. I'm good. I can ride this out. I'm in the house. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm prophetic. I'll give a word whenever I need to, but I can ride and coast. I don't need to go no further than this. So they are the riders. You have the running prophet, the people who are in the world. They're not saved. They know that they are prophets. They know that they need to get their lives together. And I'm going to share something that I couldn't share on TikTok, which was, God showed me, I don't know if many of you seen The Walking Dead, but there was a scene where I believe it was the fear, and there was this beautiful horse that had ran away, but the zombies, I forgot what they called them in The Walking Dead. I haven't watched it so long, but this horse was running and on the run, but it was in the world and it was in danger, and it didn't know that it was in danger because it was just loose and free and doing its own thing. But these zombies, the Walking Dead, they walked up on the horse, caught the horse unaware, and began to eat the horse, and they ate the horse alive. And there are people on the run who needs to be prayed back in and called into. And even if you're listening to this video and you're on the run, the things in the world, there is so much deception, so much witchcraft, so much naivety, so much things that are going on that are fighting against you. Simply because you have that call, you need to get into the house of safety and be about the Father's business, unless the zombies are going to come and they are going to begin to bite at you until they overtake you. But there is also the horse, I forget the name of the movie, who ends up running away, but the owner is able to go out and bring the horse back home with riding the horse back into victory. So there's two sides to the running horse. They can either be devoured by the ways of the world, the things of the world, the hidden deception or the open deception that is in the world, or they can be brought home to safety, and take their rightful place and position, the running horse. There's the forgotten horse. The forgotten horse, I mentioned, it's a little teeny horse. That little play horse, the little horse that people use as little pets, and they'll feed the horse and they'll treat it like it's a dog or a different other type of animal because it's a miniature horse. They'll see the horse as a horse, but they don't value the horse the way that they value the the thoroughbred. They don't value the horse the way that they value the stallion. So they look at this little horse and they think it's a little plaything. And this is how many people look at the arts, the prophets who are in the arts. They don't see it as, they see it as a little plaything. They see it as entertainment. They see it as something, let me clap my hands and give you a little tear, and that was moving, or that, you know, really touched me, and things of that nature. But they don't see it as the voice of God. They don't see it as God moving through, you know. In which I did a whole video on here on YouTube where I talked about the forgotten, the undervalued prophets, because people don't see, but they don't see because we don't point the picture to that this is God speaking through this. Sometimes when the ministry goes forward, you know, I know the scripture says, how can they hear without a preacher? But the preaching does not always have to be through the spoken word. The preaching could be through the move of the illustration, the demonstration. You have the drama ministry who put on a whole performance, and then you got a whole sermon that comes in after us. Why? Whenever they're illustrating what the Bible has already said. But anywho, the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse, if you look up, you know your history, you know anything about the Trojan horse, you know the Trojan horse is a man-made horse. It's a little horse that people chose to put together and make look like a horse. Now, when you look through spiritual eyes, when you know what a real horse is, you know that this is not a horse. Now, this horse can deceive the world because the world doesn't know the difference between the true and the false. But the mechanics, the things that are running behind and under and hidden in the Trojan horse to make it move, to make it operate, to make it do the things that it needs to do, it is intentionally created and made to deceive people and to make them think that they are something that it is something that it is not. The Trojan horse is intentionally deceptive, not called by God, not made by God. They don't have life in them. They are not an animal. They are not something that was created to be a symbol of what God created. They are the false, the fake. They are operating intentionally to deceive the people. Now, the battle that is going on between the Trojan horse, the thoroughbred, and the mixed breed is a battle that is a necessity. And a lot of people look at it as, oh, you know, all of this fighting in the church and things of that nature. It is because people don't understand. Like, people look at, and the reason, and I understand why God gave me the horse, because people look at the world and they bring the world into the church, and they want for everything that they see to be the right thing, you know, because this is the way the world sees it, or this is my lens, or my point of view, or my story, that they don't see God. They don't see the heart of God. They don't see the story of God. They don't see the workings of God. They don't see God's will. They don't see God's plan. They don't see God. All they see is this is a lump of coal. Everybody's lumped into the same lump of coal, and there are no diamonds in any of this lumps of coal. Everybody's put into the same category and the same situation, even though the Trojan horse is clearly not a real horse. A false prophet is clearly not a prophet of God, but they can't see it because the Trojan horse is able to see, is able to move, is able to do the things that prophets of God are able to do. But when you don't know the scripture, you recognize that when Moses had to come up against the magicians who were the false prophets of his day, they did everything Moses did. They were copycats. Whatever Moses did, they were able to copy it because the enemy does not make anything original. So the Trojan horse has to imitate and copy and look like and act like and mimic the things of the true horse. The false prophet has to do all these things to look like the true prophet, but the true prophet has power that can destroy and tear down the Trojan horse just by setting it on fire. But let me get back to Moses. So Moses had to come up against these false prophets, but when Moses got tired, Moses caused his rod, which turned into a snake, to eat up the magician's rod, which he dropped his rod and it turned into a snake. And Moses' rod ate up the magician's rod to let the magician know, I got all power. I got the power to eat you alive, buddy. So there are things that the true prophet show up and demonstrate and is able to do that the false prophet is not able to do, because the false prophet only imitates what the true prophet does. When we look at the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal, he came up against the prophets of Baal. The prophets of Baal were able, big and bad enough, and they were able to do everything that Elijah was able to do until Elijah called down heaven and say, look, let's do something that I know they can't do and they can't do. And they wet the wood and things of that nature, and the prophets of Baal started performing and cutting themselves and doing all of these things to try to make the miracle happen, make their God speak and do the work that only the true God could do. And then Elijah just called down to God, and God called down fire on wet wood to burn up the wet wood and consume it, which was impossible to do if it wasn't the work of the true God and the true prophet representing the true God. Now, the problem is the world looks at the whole prophetic move and want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because they've been deceived and caught up in the trickery and in the schemes of the false prophet. And even when it comes to the mutt, because the mutt is in their own feelings. They're trying to get money and get possessions and get all the things that they could get, because they're selfish and they're self-centered. So they're going to take from, use, prostitute their gift to get the things that they want from people without doing it legally, and allowing people to sow seed or, to give an offering of things of that nature, because it is something that God has led them to do. They deceive the people and make the people do something that the people, are not willing to do, or they'll hold back what it is that they are saying that God has given them to release to the true to these people, that it's a true word from God, but they choose to use the manipulative tactics to hold back in order to get gain. So they are the mutts. But it does not mean that they are not true prophets. They are just out of place. They are allowing the enemy to use them as false prophets. But the Trojan horse is intentionally deceiving and coming up against, the people of God. But they're also bucking up against the true prophets. And they're making the world and other people who are not spiritually discerning, who really don't know God, who really don't know the word of God, they're making them think that the things that they're operating in, because they have huge followings, because they are, able to trick, and duplicate what the true prophet is able to do, they're attacking the true prophet, because they know that the true prophet has the power to expose them as the false prophet. And in that exposure, they're afraid that if they're exposed, they're going to lose everything that they have, in which they will. So they are attacking, and they're biting, and they're coming up against it, and they're fighting for their lives, and they're trying to make it seem like, I need to attack you, because I know if you attack me first, the people are going to see that I'm the false, even though the Trojan is false and can be consumed by fire. But the true won't be consumed by fire, because we're covered and protected and engulfed and are ministers, in fire of God. The power of God is fire. Ministering spirits, flames of fire, But the false is afraid of being consumed and turned to ashes. And I hope this is making sense to you. So the battle is between the good and the evil, the true and the false, because the true has to put a stop to the false, the Trojan, which the false doesn't want to be stopped without a battle. So the battle that you think is unnecessary must take place, because the Trojan horse It's causing people who need the healing, who need the word of knowledge, who needs the value, who needs the thoroughbred, who needs the mixed breed to come in and minister to and heal and bring deliverance and bring the liberty and bring healing and bring provision and bring the things that only the true prophet can bring. Because the false prophet is not willing to do any of these things. The false prophet can only duplicate and copy. They're not going to and do with the intent of the heart of God to do the things that the true prophet is able to do effectively. The Trojan horse was built to deceive. The false prophet is operating under the deception of the enemy. They're meant to deceive you. They make you look like they want to help you. They'll even throw you a few dollars here and there, or a few, things that they'll do for you only to get something greater from you. But the true prophet does not operate that way. They're going to give you something and leave what it is that they gave you, and not looking for you to give them anything back in return, because they'll get it back from God. But it does not mean that God won't press upon your heart to say, be a blessing unto this person, sow a seed into this ministry, invest into this. This is good soil. If you put the seed here, it's going to grow up and it's going to become. But the false prophet is going to make you think that you have to give them something in order to get something from them. It's always going to be you paying on a great estate along with the mud. So I hope you're getting the point of what it is that God showed me in this. The world is looking at all of the prophets. The world is looking and paying attention, but the world does not have a clear definition. So we have to look at the things the way that the world is looking at things and relay to them the things that they need to do they need to understand by using the symbols that represent what they understand to bring to clarity the things that they connect to and are able to see and can relate to until their eyes are open. Many times as prophets, many of us, we give people what we want them to have instead of giving people what it is that they need. And that's not really giving people the things that God has for them, because we want to give them what we want to feed them. It's just like somebody being, okay, this is an orphanage, so I'm going to feed everybody porridge. When you have the blessings to be able to come in and allow them to have home cooked meals every day and give them steak and potatoes on the weekend. But because this is an orphanage and you look at the orphanage as being an orphanage and they should be grateful for the things that they receive from me, then I'm just going to feed everybody porridge. And then on the weekends, maybe one day I'll give them a bologna sandwich. I'm sorry, sometimes I speak so fast that my brain and my mouth don't corroborate together. But but my point is, we can't just give people what we want to give them without giving them what it is that they need. And true prophets, we're able to minister individually, one-on-one, even when we're ministering corporately. The bread is so fresh that it's bread that is baked to reach everybody and not just one particular person. But the point of what it is that I'm saying is, the horse represents the world. The world is always watching and looking. The world needs to be saved. Many of us, we minister and we're always preaching to other prophets and building up other prophets, which is great. It's good. We need that. We need to assemble ourselves together. We get strength from each other and things of that nature. But when we're so busy ministering to each other that we forget about the people who need to be saved in the world. And it is the people who need to be saved in the world who need the ministry, who our gifts need to be ministered to call them in, to draw them in for such a time as this. The work that we will need to be able to do, or that we are going to have to do, to make sure that they are provided for and things of that nature. When things really go downhill, we'll have the means and the things that they need, but we can't have false prophets still operating, trying to suck the life, like succubus, like a leech, sucking the life out of people who are already dehydrated. We have the life. So yes, the battle is necessary for the true to overtake the false, to bring to an end the things of the false. But let me also say this. I'm not sure if I said it about the mixed breed. There are many people who look at the mixed breed. The mixed breed is the new wine. It is the new thing that God is doing. So a lot of people can't put their finger on it, and they're still trying to figure out, well, you know, one day they sound like a prophet, the next day they don't. But you shouldn't be judging the prophets of how they sound. What you should be doing is going to God and saying, God, is this you? And did you call this person? You know, are you using this person? What is my assignment? Is there anything that I can do to cultivate or help this person to get on the right track? Because prophets, many of us, we like to tell the truth when we're hurting somebody, but we don't want to tell the truth when we're helping somebody. You know, there are prophets who are in place who actually need help. People who grew up like myself. You know, I can use myself. You know, people see me as a matured prophet, but I grew up in a Baptist church. There are a lot of things that I missed. I'm just coming into the prophetic, like the last 6-7 years, really flowing and moving in what God has called me to do. But it doesn't mean that I don't need help, you know, and the reaching out and just the word of encouragement sometimes help. And I'm not speaking for anybody to come to me and send me what I need personally, unless God leads you. But I'm speaking and pointing for my sisters and my brothers who have no help and no one, who nobody won't reach out to and say, you know what, you have a call, but you're headed in the wrong direction, what you need to do. Because we can look at people's platforms and look at people and see, you know, one person can't do everything. Two people can't do everything. But when we all get together and we're true about the call, the truth of what it is that we see, we could say to people, you know, you're not ready yet. You need to take another lap, whether they receive it or not. At least you told them what it is that they need to hear so that they can examine themselves whenever they come to the point that they need to examine and say, you know what, that person reached out to me. They were right. I did need to look back, but I was so gun-ho and caught up in what I was doing that I couldn't see it. They'll remember your correction in a proper way than for you to watch them and then allow them to continue to operate and move in something that you know is not God, or it's not the timing of God, or it's not the thing that God is saying. But my point is, the 7 horses, 6 of them are God's ordained prophets. Now, the way that they choose to, you know, add into the gift of who they are, the gifts of the Spirit that God has given them to operate in. Now, before I close this video, it wouldn't be right not to mention those who are prophetic. Because those who are prophetic, who believe that they are prophets, because they operate like prophets, but they don't have the office. They're not mantled. They are in a place where they are ready. They are ready riders. We could put them in the position with the riders. They are just not called to the office. God has not mantled them. God is not going to mantle them. But the way that God wants to use them is intercessors and watchmen and things of that nature. They are to be about the Father's business, and they are about the Father's business. But just because you are called, you are highly and heavily prophetic, if you don't receive the mantle, if you are not called to the office, then God is not going to use you and in the office, you know, not allow you to operate in the office because you are prophetic. You could beg, you could ask, you can cry, but you should be focused and effective because you are needed, because you are powerful, because you are right where God needs you to be. God don't make mistakes. Where God called you to be and where God put you is because he saw in you, and he knew that you were always a fighter, and that you were going to fight, and that you were going to war, that you were going to stand in the gap, that you were going to win souls, that you are going to be on fire and the fireball, doing the work that God has called you to be with your prophetic self. You know, you're sensing, you're knowing, you're discerning. Sometimes you're more accurate than even the prophets who are outside of the will and plan of God, but you know that God is using you. You just want more, and you want God to use you in more. But value and appreciate the things that God has given you and called you to do, what he has placed in your hand, because he knows exactly where you are, and he knows exactly what you can take, and he don't want to put more weight on you that you are not called to, or you think that you're able to handle, because you're handling all of this warfare. You know, being a prophet is real weighty, and if you're not, you don't have the mantle and you're operating in the call of a prophet, it's going to be heavy for you, even though you were prophetic and operating as a watchman, and it was very light for you. You know, the intercessor, it was very light. You know, it was light work. You could go in, you could sever the head of the enemy, stomp all over him, place him under your feet, and do all of these things. But when you start carrying a mantle that is too heavy for you and you're not called into it, depresses you and it weighs you down. It is too heavy for you. So value what God gave you. You are valuable. You are needed. You stand in the gap. You save our lives. Sometimes when many of us, we go into territories, God will wake you up 3 o'clock in the morning and tell you, I need you to pray for such and such. And because you got up, because you were obedient, because you stood in the gap and did the work that you needed to do, you saved people's lives. You were hanging in the balance between life and death, and you always got the victory. But when you get out of place and out of position, you're no longer in position to war or to watch or to stand guard, in the places where God needs you to be. You are thoroughbred in your own right, in what God has called you to do. So the war that's going on between the good and the evil has to be taken down. It doesn't matter how many followers the evil has. It doesn't matter what the evil looks like. It looks like it's real. The Trojan horse, it looks like the Trojan horse is attacking the true prophets, because it knows that the true prophets are the only ones who have the power and the authority to take down the whole system, tear down the whole mountain. And then the mix, let me also say this with the mix while I'm hearing God, because when you look at I believe it's Haggai, the shaking, and then you have Jeremiah, the plucking up and the rooting up. You have the mixed breed who is not only functioning in one or the other. The mixed breed could be a seer. It could be they could be a Jeremiah. They could be a Haggai. They could be a Isaiah, all at the same time. They could be a shaking going on, a rumbling going on, and a plucking up at the same time. So we really, like, my point is, for people who, we as prophets, those of us, we need to teach people, what a prophet looks like. Allow them to see the real prophet. You don't stop being a prophet. There are people who are called to the office of a prophet, the writer, who don't want to be prophets, who say, I'm not answering the call because all these fake prophets that are out here, but you're out of position and not doing what you need to do because you're focused on what's fake, instead of you being a real and a genuine and being asset to the body of Christ and being about the Father's business and doing the things that the Father has called you to do. You can't focus on what's fake. You must focus on what's real and be about the Father's business to do what you were called to do. There are people out here who need you. There's a tribe out here that only you can reach. There is a calling that only you can answer. There are people who need you. People with hundreds of thousands of followers and things of that nature won't be able to reach. When there's 8 billion people on this planet, you have a tribe. It doesn't matter about who's false or what the false is doing. It is about your assignment and the work that you are called to do. The false are being taken down. They're going to be taken down. They are being taken down. They're fighting tooth and nail to try to hold on. But the war is between the good and evil, between the truth and the lie. The deception is fighting for its life. But the true and those who are in position to stand up against the true, we can't always tell them, oh, just ignore them and overlook them and don't pay them any attention, when it is their assignment as Elijah to make them look like the fool that they are, to expose the lies. So because there are different types of prophets who do different things, you may not operate in the way where you are a Moses or an Elijah who's going to take the prophet down. But you have to stay focused and be about the business that you are called to. The mix, the mutt, the mutt is going to have to change, choose a side. The mutt is already 75-80% geared on the false prophet because they're mixed and contaminated. But that little spark of God, that call, the truth that is in them, God is waking up and and starting to, bring them to the realization, this is not the time for you to be straddling the fence. But they know, and that's personal between them. But you don't let the mutt stop you from moving forward in what God called you to do. Sometimes God, not sometimes, all the time, God will allow us to see things that we don't like, so that when we are in position and in place and operating and moving forward, we don't do the things that we know hurt us, that people did to us. We don't do to other people. So you experience things and you see things so that you don't become the thing. You don't act like the thing. You don't mistreat people the way that that thing did to you. You become a better person, a better prophet, a better breed of a horse. You become a thoroughbred, flowing and moving forward, not caring about what other horses out there are doing or focused on. You are about the Father's business, doing the things of God. That's what God shared with me. I don't know if I shared it in the beginning of this video, but there are 3 things that he told me. Don't get distracted, mind your business, and don't get caught up in fights that don't belong to you. This is Let's Talk Kingdom. I pray that this was a blessing to you. Have a blessed and prosperous day on purpose.